Ranking Champion Prime. So this is another tier list video we have today. You guys seem to be enjoying them, except the one I made yesterday. It was very, very badly received. Some of the criticism I think is actually fair. But, you know, apart from Alex's comment who said, do you post picks? If so, I want to pick against you every week. So, you know, that's what I was getting yesterday. Tons of grief from the Khamzat Chimaev fan base. You know, and I've included Khamzat Chimaev in this video today, which we'll talk about later. So, ranking champion primes. Let me know in the comments if you want to see any other champions. I can always remake this video. I think I thought about like 22, 21 champions in my head to rank in today's video that most people always talk about when they talk about the favourite primes or the favourite champion primes. More so from the newer generation. If you want me to do one including the older generation, I certainly can. So, without further ado, let's talk about the categories. Nostalgia. So nostalgia for me is like it just makes me feel nostalgic. I loved them. I loved the prime. It was amazing. It just gives me warm, fuzzy feelings down below. Bloody lovely. Bloody lovely means I really enjoyed the prime. It wasn't quite nostalgia, but I'm a big fan of the fighter, and I was a big fan of the prime. Underrated, you know, they don't get the appreciation they deserve. You know, they don't. They don't get the appreciation they deserve. People don't rate them anywhere near enough. Solid means, listen, I may not have been a huge fan of them. They're not one of my favourite fighters, but I can acknowledge they had a solid career and a solid prime. Tad overrated means they're a little bit overrated in the sense that, you know, people treat them as if they were unstoppable, but really they got found out a lot of the time at the highest level. And dear God, in brackets Khamzat, funnily enough, this one's for you, Alex. Dear God, in brackets Khamzat means bottom of the barrel. Just don't rate the primes whatsoever. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, up first, we've got Francis Ngannou. Now, for me, Francis Ngannou's prime, when he fought Stipe Miocic in that second fight, that was a injury-free, just perfectly conditioned Francis Ngannou. That, for me, is such an underrated fighter. I want to put him in bloody lovely. It doesn't quite make me feel nostalgic because I think he could have done more in his career. You know, obviously he had pay disputes with the UFC and the Jones fight didn't fall through, which wasn't his fault the first time. But underrated. He is very underrated, Francis Ngannou. And here's my explanation when I talk about how underrated Francis Ngannou is. Francis Ngannou gets treated like a big dum-dum, right? I know he goes in swinging wildly against Jairzinho Rozenstruik and knocks him out cold. And he's swinging wildly, right? I know the first Stipe fight was wild. Ngannou on a technical level is the best heavyweight of all time. There, I said it. I don't care. Very good grappler. Very good low kicks. Very good boxing. One-shot knockout power. In that Stipe Miocic 2 fight, I think that is one of the most underrated title performances, period, of all time. I know Stipe was like 39 in that fight, I think. But still, coming off a big win against Daniel Cormier. 2 big wins over Daniel Cormier. That was such an underrated title performance. Ngannou, people don't even rate this guy's skills properly. That's how underrated Francis Ngannou is. He doesn't get anywhere near enough respect for his prime. His prime truly was a sight to behold. And when people say to me, oh, John Jones is the baddest man on the planet. He would beat anybody that's ever lived. You put him in a room with anybody, he walks out. No, Ngannou is that man. He's the baddest man to ever live, in my opinion. That's no glaze, but in my opinion, besides maybe Tom Aspinall. Come on, you know we've got to back Tom. Cody Garbrandt. Okay, I was waiting for this. Tad bit overrated. This is a good test of your ball knowledge. If you like, you can disagree with me. You can disagree with me. This is a very subjective video. I guess it's kind of preference for me. But I kind of roll my eyes a little bit when somebody says Cody Garbrandt was the best fighter of all time for 25 minutes against Dominick Cruz. I kind of go, oh, was he though? Was he the best fighter of all time? Really? Or did he fight an injury-ridden Dominick Cruz who had had his longevity and his prime badly affected by several leg injuries and ACL injuries? And you know, he'd beaten a lot of Team Alpha Male. I truly believe the Weasel's theory that Cody Garbrandt was specifically built to beat Dominick Cruz and nobody else. I truly believe that theory. I really, really do. Do I think that version of Dominick Cruz that lost to Cody Garbrandt was a solid version? Yes. But the way people treat Cody Garbrandt is that, conveniently, prime Cody Garbrandt only existed until he lost. So he just was, even though he was early 20s when he beat Dominick Cruz, he was just out of his prime when TJ Dillashaw whooped him twice. I mean, he gave TJ Dillashaw a really good fight both times, but TJ knocked him out twice. He was just out of his prime when he fought Pedro Munoz. Just out of his prime. That, you know, and then when he beat Rafael Assunção, this is prime Cody. This is prime Cody. This is the best version of Cody we've ever seen. And then Rob Font whooped him, right? Rob Font whooped him. And it's okay because I went through this life cycle as an MMA fan. Rob Font whooped him and he was out of his prime conveniently again. Even though Patient Garbrandt was the new greatest fighter of all time. Seriously. And I'm not even trying to hate on Cody Garbrandt. I swear to God, I am not trying to hate on Cody Garbrandt here. But when the way people talk about prime Cody Garbrandt is that this guy was unbeatable. No, he got beat by Pedro Munoz and he got beat twice by TJ Dillashaw. And he was probably in his prime still when Rob Font beat him. I'm not having it anymore. Honestly, if we're being honest and objective when we look back at his career, I don't even think his fight against Dominick Cruz is the greatest title performance of all time. I don't. I think it's up there. But honestly, this thing around prime Cody Garbrandt, for me, is just a complete myth. And I sound like I'm hating on Cody here. I'm not trying to. I just think the way people talk it up is insane to me. If I want to see the comments, it's always the most liked comment. Cody was the best fighter of all time for 25 minutes. Was he though? It was a very good performance. Was he the best fighter of all time? Was he? I don't know. John Jones. I'm tempted to put him in tad overrated, but solid. His prime isn't one of my favourites, right? He in general isn't one of my favourite fighters. For me, even though he's got the blemishes with his PDs and stuff like that, which could definitely put him in tad bit overrated, because as soon as after the DC2 fight, he wasn't quite the same level. Still very good. Still technically hasn't lost. 2-division champion. Fantastic career overall. Like, all time, he's still had a fantastic career. You know, he really didn't need to do PEDs, but he did do them, which puts a massive blemish on his resume. Prime John Jones, you could say, is overrated for that reason, if you believe he was on PEDs. And to be fair, his best career performance, right, was Daniel Cormier 2, where, to be fair, he did pop for steroids. So, I guess you could put Prime John in tad overrated. I'd still put him in solid. Like, he was clearly elite. He was clearly very, very good. He just wasn't one of my personal favourites. And he definitely isn't underrated. And he definitely isn't nostalgic for me. Because I've never been a huge John Jones fan. Do you know what I mean? Like, John Jones is not one of my favourite fighters. He's not, like, one of my favourite fighters at all, to be honest with you. I just wouldn't put him that high in my favourite primes. I guess this just really is preference, right? I know it kind of sounded like a shit on Cody Garbrandt before. I do kind of feel bad now. I just think the way people talk that up is absolutely insane to me. John Jones, for me, is just solid. Solid. Khamzat Chimaev. Dear God, just bottom of the barrel. Nah, I don't rate it at all. No, he's very, very good. But, you know, yesterday's video, it hurt my feelings, some of the comments that I was getting about the Khamzat Chimaev take. Just ranking him below Ilia Topuria, Merab as a more beatable champion. You know, but apparently, when recency bias kicks in, Khamzat Chimaev just can't lose. He's just absolutely unstoppable. I think he's very, very good. You know, some of the criticism was warranted. But, you know, because the Khamzat Chimaev fan base turned on me yesterday, I'm going to turn on Khamzat for this one. Dear God, just bottom of the barrel, man. Bottom of the barrel. Specifically you, Alex. Just bottom of the barrel. You can go with him, you prick. You can go with him. Bottom of the barrel. Way, way down. Dominick Cruz. Oh, he's got to be underrated. Yes, I know Cody Garbrandt beat him. Was it a prime Cruz? It's always an interesting topic of conversation. Obviously, it kind of goes back to the argument that, well, it wasn't prime Cruz until he lost. Like, Dominick Cruz, the only thing that stopped prime Cruz from having tons of longevity is injuries. Injuries plagued his career. If you know, you know. And people don't talk about him enough. People don't talk about him enough. Very underrated resume. Pioneer in the bantamweight division. Pioneer for MMA. I actually think Dominick Cruz's movement, although it is weird and it's kind of unorthodox, actually helped move the sport forward, especially in the lighter divisions. It helped the lighter guys move a lot better. Because, yes, it was unorthodox, and yes, he did fight in patterns, which later on cost him, let's say, against Chito Vera, who figured out the movement puzzle and head kicked him. You know, prime Dominick Cruz was a pioneer, in my opinion, and he doesn't get enough credit for that. He was one of the first ever fighters to really integrate and use movement as a key factor to how he won his fights. A very good wrestler, a very good fighter in general, very good head movement, very good defence, statistically very good defence. He loved to mention that too. Amazing trash talker. Like some of the build-up to Dominick Cruz's fights, if you go watch his Uriah Faber press conferences, or even his Cody Garbrandt press conference, this guy could talk it up. Dominick Cruz is very underappreciated, and in my opinion, extremely underrated, in my opinion. Tyron Woodley, for me, another one. Tyron Woodley does not get the respect he deserves. Prime... What the fuck do you know about prime Tyron Woodley, right? Was he the last sort of, when you think about it, one-dimensional kind of champion? Yes, he was. But like the way everybody wrote Woodley off against Darren Till, people forget, man, that version of Darren Till was a marauder. That version of Darren Till was a marauder. You know, and Woodley shut him out. That was his career best performance. You know, the Wonder Boy first fight, the second fight we don't talk about. Because he had fallouts with the UFC, and because later on in his career he sold out and got knocked out by Jake Paul, is what it is, that's up to him. He gets very underrated. You know, if you want to bury your legacy, fight Jake Paul, is all I will say. If you want to bury your legacy and you only want money, fight Jake Paul. But Tyron Woodley, for me, very underrated. He's prime. It's just a ferocious animal. The way he knocked out Robbie Lawler. And think about how much of a fan favourite Robbie Lawler was back then and how much people really wrote Woodley off going into that fight. Just slumped him in the first round. Woodley is very underrated. In fact, he's going to go at the very top. Cruz, he's going to go at the very top. Even more underrated than Ngannou. Like, people don't talk about Woodley enough. Obviously, we've got Usman now, and we've had GSP there, greater than him in his own division. But people really gloss over Woodley like he's absolutely nothing. And I get he was very one-dimensional. He kind of had a right overhand blitz or a double leg takedown. And then Usman, absolutely. You could see that Woodley was just so much less evolved than Usman. It wasn't even funny when they fought. It was like just the complete takeover from the new generation. And Woodley got found out against him. But man, Woodley was an animal. Very underrated in my opinion, but that's his fault for fighting Jake Paul, because I think people would respect him properly if he did. Islam Makhachev. Ooh. Bloody lovely. Bloody lovely. Bloody lovely. Absolutely bloody loved Islam Makhachev. I say loved. He might still be in his prime right now, but if he loses to JDM, that could be the start of a decline. His run at lightweight, I don't think I ever predicted him to lose a fight at lightweight. The Volkanovski one fight was dicey. Obviously, the knockout in the second one, it was on short notice. But I do wish he fought more guys on full camps. It wasn't really his fault. But, you know, he had a lot of late replacements in his career and stuff like that. Longest active win streak at lightweight. Absolutely love Islam Makhachev. One of my favourite fighters. Extremely well-rounded. Dominant. I feel like at the moment, he is the peak example of a well-rounded, elite-level mixed martial artist. Fantastic striking, just different gravy levels of grappling. Even in the Moicano fight, right, I expected Islam Makhachev to get maybe like a TKO on the feet or maybe a ground and pound TKO. I did not expect him to do that to Moicano. As easy as he got that Darce, it was just... That I know it was on short notice, and I know Moicano isn't necessarily on Islam's level, right? He certainly isn't Arman Zarukian. But that was just special when Islam Makhachev did that to Moicano, in my opinion. Just absolutely loved it. Absolutely bloody loved it. Bloody lovely. Conor McGregor. I'll tear up. I will. I'll tear up. I'll tear up if I go too deep on this. Now, I know people always like to comment that it makes them sad what Conor McGregor's turned into. You had to... With Conor McGregor, new fans will say, you can become a new fan of MMA now and get into Conor McGregor, and you'll go through that phase of thinking Conor McGregor's the greatest fighter of all time. But with Conor McGregor, right, as somebody that got into the sport because of him, prime Conor McGregor, right? You had to be there to understand. If you got into an MMA later on, you just don't get it. You might think you get it because you know how big the Floyd fight was. You know how big the Khabib fight was. You know how big these Nate Diaz fights were. But if you weren't there, you just don't get it. You just don't. You had to be there to understand the hype this guy used to bring to this fucking company. And seeing what he has become now just makes me more nostalgic about who he used to be. This guy has literally gone against every value he used to have. Partying his weakness for the soul, you know, loyalty, you know, or everything he's betrayed that he used to believe in now. It's just so sad to me. But it makes me really nostalgic about his prime. In his prime, mate, get the fuck out of my face. When you're talking about prime Conor McGregor, man, you just had to be there to understand. If you weren't there, you don't understand. That's all I can really say about it. Like, when I try to talk about prime Conor McGregor, and like the way Conor McGregor used to make you feel as an MMA fan, like you were a part of something. I know I'm not from the Republic of Ireland, right? I'm from the UK, I'm from England especially. But if you were from over this neck of the woods, I bet especially back then if you were from the Republic of Ireland, this guy would make you feel like you were a part of something. And when I got into MMA, which was 2016, I was, 13 years old? So I was a wee lad. And it was just captivating. Absolutely captivating. It was just something else. It really, really was. It was just, it was just something else. It just was. I don't know what else to say about it. Anderson Silva, looking back at it, so bloody lovely. He's not nostalgic for me because I wasn't an MMA fan when Anderson Silva was in his prime, right? I was still watching the WWE back then. But later on, when I do get why people loved him so much. And I think many people that are maybe like unks, more unks than me, or old heads, whatever, you'll probably comment and you'll agree. Anderson Silva was so ahead of his time from a striking point of view. So ahead of his time that he makes the competition level from back then look like shit. Some of his best wins, like if you go look at Nate Marquardt, who Anderson Silva absolutely took apart, people will be like, Nate Marquardt, he was a shit, he was a bin driver. Who's Nate Marquardt? Nate Marquardt was a very well thought of fighter back then. But Anderson Silva whooped him so easily, it makes people think now that that win meant nothing. He has 16 solid wins in his career. That stretch and that title run, the front kick to the face over Vitor Belfort. I mean, even looking back at it now, and sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I do like to stick Prime Anderson on my TV every now and again on Fight Pass. Yeah, I can afford Fight Pass. You guys can't, no. I do love to stick Anderson Silva on TV sometimes and watch him because he was just seriously, it's just fluid to watch. I bet Anderson Silva in his prime, for the old heads, probably made them feel similar to how Conor McGregor made me feel, right? So even I love looking back at an Anderson Silva, and even I love appreciating him because it was bloody lovely. Let me tell you that much. Jose Aldo. Ooh. They don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear that. Actually, no, I'm going to put him in solid. Is he going to go into a bit overrated? Solid. I'll keep him a solid. It was solid. He's not one of my favourite primes ever, right? He's not. I can appreciate a prime Jose Aldo. No, he's a tad bit overrated. I know I'm going to get cooked, but the thing with Jose Aldo is, he's another guy where people pretend prime Jose Aldo just couldn't lose, right? Yes, he had an incredible 10-year stretch. Yes, he was incredible, right? When I say a tad bit overrated with Jose Aldo, please understand, I'm not trying to say he didn't have an incredible prime, right? But, prime Aldo lost to Max Holloway twice. One of them was on short notice, fair enough. Prime Aldo lost to Conor McGregor in 13 seconds. And Prime Aldo got whooped by Alexander Volkanovski. These are the facts people don't like to hear. Three other greatest featherweights of all time whooped him, right? The reality around Prime Aldo, for me, is this. People will say Aldo wasn't in his prime for the McGregor fight. He wasn't in his prime for the two Max Holloway fights, and he wasn't in his prime against Alexander Volkanovski. Do you know how old he was when he lost to Conor McGregor? He was 29. Do you know how old he was when he lost to Alexander Volkanovski? I think he was around 31, 30. Do you know how old he was when he lost to... Max Holloway was 31, 30. To Alexander Volkanovski, he was 32. He was still in his prime. He was still performing at a high level. He still looked fantastic. Tad bit overrated. Because people will just, like, discredit any Aldo loss. Even the Conor McGregor one, they'll be like, Prime Aldo would have beat Conor. He was in his prime. Just because McGregor caught him in 13 seconds doesn't mean he was out of his prime. And even the Alexander Volkanovski one, that was a Prime Aldo. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. People just don't want to accept that Prime Aldo wasn't absolutely unstoppable. People just don't want to accept that fact. And I know I'm going to get cooked in the comments, but that's just the truth about Aldo. People don't want to accept that Prime Aldo wasn't as unstoppable as people make out. He wasn't. He wasn't. Look at the age he was at. And his performances hadn't declined either against Max Holloway in the first fight. Second fight, he was on short notice. He didn't quite look himself. But in the Volkanovski fight, that's still the same Aldo that was in his prime. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. Maybe Volkanovski is the maximum I will allow you to make excuses for Aldo for. But McGregor and Holloway, stop making excuses. That was a Prime Aldo. Not buying it whatsoever. I hate when people do it. And that's why he's a tad underrated. Tad overrated. If you want to put him in bloody lovely, if he nostalgic, he's not one of my favourite primes ever. He's not nostalgic to me. He's not underrated. Nowhere near. I'm either happy with solid or tad overrated. But I'm only saying tad overrated because I truly feel like people make so many excuses for any of his losses. Especially the McGregor and Holloway, and I would even throw a Volk loss in there. Just wasn't in his prime in those fights. Oh, really? Really? Yes, he was. Come on. Come on. He was. And it's not like they were bad losses. I'm not trying to shit on Aldo. Again, it sounds like I'm hating on Aldo. Love Aldo. But come on. Can you not concede that your love for Aldo might make you overrate him a tiny bit? He is capable of losing, you know. It's okay to take a loss. But any loss he did have, he just wasn't in his prime. He just wasn't in his prime. Not buying it. Ilia Topuria, again, bloody lovely. It's not nostalgic because it's still going on. Same with Islam Makhachev. Bloody lovely. Love myself a bit of Topuria. Love him. Love a bit of Ilia Topuria. I really do. There's the full list there, just to pause it for a second to see how far we've gotten. Let me know in the comments what you think. I know some of you are going to disagree with some of this, but I guess it is personal preference, right? And it's fine. I got cooked yesterday. Surely it can't be worse than this, Alex. Yeah, Ilia Topuria, bloody lovely. Slightly above Islam Makhachev because Ilia Topuria kind of makes me feel how Conor made me feel. You know, that's not just because he copies off Conor at every turn. Kind of creepy at times. But the delusion, like the delusional belief and stuff like that, and the KOs are just insane to me. You either go one way or the other with Ilia Topuria. You either get bitter because he's knocking out your favourite fighters like Volk, Max and Charles, and you get bitter about him and you make excuses for them, or you go the other way, which is me, and you can appreciate just how good he is. So for me, Ilia Topuria in bloody lovely is absolutely fair. Daniel Cormier, absolutely underrated. Criminally underrated, Daniel Cormier. Criminally. Like, so criminally underrated to the point it's not even funny. People think the John Jones, especially the John Jones head kick, which is a no contest, by the way, because John Jones popped for steroids, people treat Daniel Cormier like them two fights are the only fights that defined his career. Daniel Cormier overachieved in many ways. He didn't come into the UFC young. He came into the UFC well in his 30s, right? But he did have a prime in the UFC, I guess you can look at it, where he performed at his best in the UFC and then he declined, which is like the Stipe Miocic free fight. But Daniel Cormier, man, so underrated. So small for the division. Literally looks like Chris Barnett. He's got that Chris Barnett build. Not quite as bad, but struggled to make light heavyweight. Really, if Cain Velasquez never existed, he'd easily be the greatest heavyweight of all time. Like, really, he wasn't a light heavyweight. But because he was friends with Cain Velasquez, he was willing to take the cut. Unbelievable fighter. Gave prime John Jones a good run, despite the fact John Jones had every advantage over him in terms of size, length, height, reach. Every advantage over him. In that first fight, it was pretty competitive. Prime Daniel Cormier, man. Oh, my God, he was good. He was good. He was very, very good. The Gustafsson fight, his wrestling, you know, the Rumble Johnson fights, they were amazing. Honestly, Daniel Cormier, criminally underrated. Had a fantastic career. You know, prime Cormier is so underrated because people are like, oh, well, those Jones fights just defined his career. But no, man. No, man. He very much overachieved in his career when you think about it, Daniel Cormier. But people just don't give him the flowers he deserves. Especially because he acts a bit silly now and, you know, he likes to have fun with Laura Sanko and stuff like that. You know, so very underrated, in my opinion. Alexander Volkanovski. Stop. Nostalgic. I miss it. And I know he's champion. And I predicted him to beat Diego Lopez. God, I miss it. Oh, God, I miss it. I miss it so much, man. I really miss Alexander Volkanovski's title run. It was just, oh, you had to be there. And I know it weren't even that long ago, but honestly. And he really didn't get the credit he deserved until after the Holloway free fight, where people were like, because the amount of people loved Max Holloway so much, people don't realise Volk was massively hated for a long time. When he beat Chad Mendes and when he beat Aldo, very hated. He beat Max Holloway in the first fight. It was competitive and close, and Volk won justifiably. Second fight, in my opinion, Volk definitely won the second fight for me, justifiably. But it could have gone either way, you know what I mean? So I guess justifiably is a bit of an extreme way of putting it. But I think Volk won the second fight. But after that, he got so much hate. And then people realised he's just a good guy. And then when he whooped Max Holloway in the third fight, and gave Islam Makhachev one of the hardest fights, no, the hardest fight of his career, except the Adriano Martins fight, right? Just an unbelievable fighter Prime Volk was. And, you know, Volk, as a champ, even still, like, now he's champion, Lerone Murphy gets a spinning elbow knockout and he calls Lerone Murphy out. He just calls him out. You know what I mean? He calls out Movsar Evloev. And that's Volk now. Volk back then, because he beat Max Holloway twice, he said, no, get me a third fight and let me show the world exactly who I am. That is what I fucking miss about this fucking guy. Active, just technically brilliant. God, what do you know about Prime Volk? Absolutely nothing. Love Prime Volk. Oh, here we go. Prime Max Holloway. So, I don't think, like, with Max Holloway, I think Max Holloway isn't in his prime, absolute prime. I would say this is still an elite level, fantastic version of Max. I don't think it's, I don't know, it's hard to gauge. I would still say Max is in his prime, somewhat. But there's been different versions of Max, to where there was an old version of Max, which is the one that fought Calvin Kattar, which is the one that fought Volk 3 times. And he lost those 3 fights, but still gave him a good run for his money, except the third fight. You know, there's the one that beat Aldo in that first fight. You know, Max was, when you talk about, like, actually being a pioneer and kind of like cardio output pioneer, just volume machine, Max Holloway is a pioneer in those regards. I know BJ Penn was kind of one in his prime, but Max Holloway just, I want to kind of put him in solid or bloody lovely. Bloody lovely. Bloody lovely. Absolutely love a bit of Prime Max. A bit of featherweight champion Max. I can't believe it was so long ago, which just speaks to how good Volkanovski was. To beat Max Holloway in his prime 3 times is insane. But you've just got to love Max Holloway. He's a good guy. All his fights are fun. Even if he is losing to Ilia Topuria, all of his fights are fun. You know, even the Gaethje knockout, just everything about Max Holloway is just fun, right? Bloody love it. The knockout at UFC 300 over Gaethje, Absolutely bloody loved it. It was just a thing of beauty. Absolutely loved it. What more can I say about Primax? Love Primax. Kamaru Usman. Prime Usman. It's got to be bloody lovely. Not quite nostalgic. I nearly put him in solid because I did root against him in the Leon Edwards 2 fight. I'm not going to lie, I did. For whatever reason, and I did really love Leon Edwards back then, and I still am a fan of him. I really felt Leon Edwards was hard done by the UFC. Also, I kind of rooted against him against Jorge Masvidal in that second fight. But after that Jorge Masvidal 2 fight, I was like, oh, I love this guy. Even the Colby Covington Wars, just love a bit of prime Kamaru Usman. You know what I mean? Who doesn't? Some great fights. The Gilbert Burns fight was a great fight. He carried 2020 on his back. 2021, maybe 2020. Was it 2020 or 2021? I can't remember. I think it was 2020. I do love a bit of prime Kamaru. Come on, you've got to. Like, bloody loved it. Not quite nostalgic, because I did root against him once or twice, and the Leon Edwards. When Leon Edwards head kicked him, I was very happy, because I felt Leon was so hard done by with the UFC. I really felt bad for him after that Nate Diaz fight. I was like, fuck's sake. That elite level performance was ruined by that one little moment where he got caught. So I kind of rooted against Usman in that. And then with Masvidal, it felt like back then Masvidal was the good guy. Because as much as people rewrite history now, Usman was also a very hated champ. Very hated. And until the Masvidal 2 fight, a lot of people hated Usman and called him a boring fighter. Even his fight against Tyron Woodley was hated on because it wasn't the most entertaining. And that is another one which was a criminally underrated title fight. But I wouldn't put him in underrated because I think he's rated properly. Bloody loved it. Bloody loved it, man. Bloody loved a bit of prime Kamaru Usman. Oh. Shut the fuck up. Shut your fucking mouth. Don't. Very, very, very top of underrated. Henry Cejudo. Shut the fuck up. Shut your mouth. Shut up. Shut up. If you're going to disagree with this, get out of my face. Oh, God. Prime Henry Cejudo. And let me explain this. Prime Henry Cejudo, if anything, pisses me off. If anything, he just pisses me off. This guy should have achieved... Nothing stopped this guy from achieving more, except wanting to be paid more, and fair enough. But he just wasn't a big enough star to leverage the UFC like that. I think after he beat Dominick Cruz, he thought in his own mind that he was a big star, the king of cringe. It wasn't really a gimmick that was sticking, but as a fighter, criminally underrated. He beat a prime peak Demetrius Johnson, right? I think DJ won that fight, right? And yeah, DJ was never getting that decision because he was leaving the UFC. But, man, God, prime Henry Cejudo. Oh, God, he was so underrated. So underrated. That run he went on. DJ, TJ, Marlon Moraes, Dominick Cruz. Arguably the best win streak ever. Beat Demetrius Johnson. Close fight, but, you know, could have gone either way, really. He won that fight. We beats Demetrius Johnson, ends his long title run. That's one of the best achievements of all time in of itself. Beats an EPO TJ Dillashaw. Yes, was he probably diminished in terms of durability, even though he was on EPO because he suffered such an extreme weight cut, no doubt about it. But still, beat an EPO'd TJ Dillashaw, a prime TJ Dillashaw career-wise. Incredible win. Marlon Moraes. Literally the definition of Joe Rogan, people forget man marauder. That version of Marlon Moraes. Animal. Anybody that ever tries to slam on the Marlon Moraes win for Henry Cejudo does not know ball. That was just an unbelievable win. Unbelievable win. It can't go on like this, can it? It can. Absolutely unbelievable win. God, and Marlon Moraes was never the same after that. Cruz wasn't in his prime, but it was still a good win. Cruz still looked good in that fight. Honestly, what so underrated too. I just wish it just pisses me off that he did what he did, because he just should have been so much more. Henry Ceudo, it just should have been so much more. Israel Adesanya, solid. It kind of became stale for me. I think his performance against Robert Whittaker, I loved it. His fight against Kelvin Gastelum's one of my favourite ever. I loved his build-up to his Derek Brunson fight. I think Israel Adesanya is... I don't want to say he's not underrated, he's rated properly. He's just not one of my favourite champions, right? I wouldn't say I don't like him, right? I don't like John Jones. I wouldn't say I don't like Israel Adesanya. I do like him. He seems like a good guy and stuff. I just think some of his title performances, like the Cannonier and Vettori fights, the Yoel Romero fight, they were just a bit stale. And it's not quite his fault, right? Because if you're not going to force the champion to get out of gear one, he probably isn't going to get out of gear one. Especially when he's a long-range point fighter. Not point fighter, but sniper like Israel Adesanya. Styles kind of make fights, but just some of his title performances, they just didn't have the same level of sauce. Even the Robert Whittaker 2 fight, a fight he arguably lost, like, it just didn't have the same level of sauce, did it? It just kind of ran a bit stale for me. I wouldn't put him in like Usman, Holloway, Silva, Makhachev, Ilya. Like, I wouldn't put him in those kind of categories, but it was solid. You know what I mean? It was solid. Demetrius Johnson. Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, yeah. Lovely. Bloody lovely. I do love a bit of Prime DJ. Love watching some of his fights back. Kind of become underrated. The fact that people think Pantoja's nearly surpassed him is insane to me. Insane to me. You'll never see levels of longevity like that ever again. And when people say it was easier to achieve that level of longevity before, I kind of agree, but I don't think it's to the level that people say. When people dog on his competition level, again, Ray Borg was seen as a top contender back then. Like, people will say, oh, well, Ray Borg wasn't that good now. But back then, Ray Borg was considered a top win for Demetrius Johnson. Nobody does that to Ray Borg. Nobody gets a flying fucking suplex armbar. Who does that? Unbelievable fighter. And to be honest with you, arguably just the best MMA fighter ever. And in my opinion, he should have left the UFC as a lineal champion. Because I think he beat a prime peak Henry Ceudo, which is, again, would have been insane. That would have been another insane title defence. But because he was leaving the company, he was never going to get that decision, to be honest with you. Even if it was, like, very one-sided, he was probably still never going to get it. You know what I mean? My eye keeps spasming. But he was never going to get it, but bloody love a bit of Prime DJ. Oh. Wow. Wow. Prime Charles Oliveira. Wow. Absolutely loved it. Oh my God. Absolutely loved it. I don't know what else to say, but that 3-fight stretch was just one of my favourite stretches ever. Absolutely loved it. Oh, shut up. Shut up. Alex Pereira. Oh, God. It was last year. But I fucking loved every minute of it. Oh, God, we'll never see another champion that active ever again. We'll never see anything like what Pereira did last year ever again. Unbelievable. Yeah, some of his matchups were tailor-made for him. Yes, some of the light heavyweights he fought, all of them didn't have the best fight IQ. So what, man? I don't care. I fucking loved Prime, but I loved Pereira's title run. And I know technically Pereira, age-wise, isn't in his prime as well, but, you know, his prime in his MMA career. Do you know what I mean? Stipe, not one of my favourite champions, solid. Did I not include Khabib? Did I not include Khabib? 1 second, guys. Right, so we've got Khabib in. Sorry to gloss over Stipe Miocic. I just think it was solid. Like, I don't dislike him. Again, I know he's in the same bracket as Jones. I just think it was solid. Like, I was never like a huge fan of Stipe like some other people were. I just think it was like a good run, good prime. Khabib. Right, guys. I know this may come as a surprise to you because I put Conor McGregor at the top, and for some reason you just can't be a fan of Conor McGregor and Khabib in their primes. Top. No, it's slightly below Conor, but God, prime Khabib. Honestly, Still to this day, I argue the best fighter I have ever seen. In terms of effectiveness, dominance, everything. Love Prime Khabib. The way he just used to beat the shit out of everybody. And yet, like, I know there's arguments that he lost to Gleison Tebow. Gleison Tebow was on PEDs anyway. Don't care if he didn't get caught. He objectively was. If you disagree, you're wrong. Don't care. Don't care about his longevity. Again, it does annoy me sometimes, but he retired for more understandable reasons than Henry Cejudo. He is, in my opinion, the best fighter I've ever seen. And I'm not joking there, just honestly. The way he dealt with McGregor, the way he dealt with Poirier, the way he dealt with Gaethje. And again, people, you have to have been there to understand. You had to be there when people were saying, oh, but Justin Gaethje, he's a Division 1 wrestler. He's got power, he's got leg kicks. He just dominated Tony Ferguson, Khabib's nightmare matchup. He's the guy to beat Khabib. Khabib won't be able to take him down. Inverted triangle. Easy as that. Prime Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier just beat Max Holloway. He's the interim champ. Dustin Poirier is a beast. He's got power. He's got great combination punching. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's going to be the one to do it. Dominated. Conor McGregor coming back as the biggest star in MMA, the lineal champion, the champ. Dominated. And I know Conor was drinking and stuff in the build-up, but still, age-wise, that's a prime Conor. Just, Khabib was filthy good. Oh, yeah. Loved Prime Khabib. Honest to God. Loved him. Wow. And that concludes it, guys. Obviously, I know there's so many champions I will have missed off on this. But these are just champions for me that people talk about. Kind of zoom out for you there. These are just champions that people include. Obviously, you know, not a lot of you will have made it this far. I do like Khamzat Chimaev. But, you know, the Chimaev fans, they weren't happy with me yesterday. Some of the criticism was warranted. But, you know, love this list. I think this has just kind of come down to personal preference, right? There's no right or wrong answer. But let me know what you guys think. I thought this was a bit of fun. I can't believe it's 42 minutes long. Thank you all for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Adios. Goodbye.